Get started. Oh, where's my gavel here? Okay, we'll call the Park Commission to order for February 4th, 2021. First order of business is call to order. Second is approval of minutes of a prior meeting.
I'll move approval of the February minutes with a couple of notes.
Okay,
In 5B, it's written, there's a fee in lieu of dedication dollars at the end of the paragraph there. Fee-in-lieu of dedication dollars. The way that reads to me when it's put like that, it sounds like the fee in lieu is in place of the dedication dollars, but it's the same thing. I would really like that to always be called, all hyphenated together, fee in lieu of land dedication, with hyphens between all of those words. That would be clearer of what that actually is.
okay, that does clarify a bit.
And
Any other corrections?
6B. On 6B, the word publicly has an extra AL in it. It is correct in 6D.
Okay.
Yeah, just the 6B, the word publicly. Yeah, take out an A and an L. And look at 6D also, that's correct.
6D is correct?
6D is correct, yeah, I looked it up to make sure. And then number 9, announcements. In the agenda, it did note that the next meetings were March 4th and April 1. It just got left off somehow on here.
I can add that, yep, thank you.
Needs a second.
Is that all?
I had
I understand that Sue has a friendly amendment to make, which I will accept.
yes. I cut off my own notes here, so I only have the letter A, but it was the area where we talked about the Fitchburg Greenway system. So do we see that in our minutes? I just kept a copy and didn't get the whole thing here. But it talked about, it starts out Steve Arnold was in attendance, and I thought we could say Steve Arnold representing Bike Fitchburg. And then at the end, we did talk about funds, where Mr. Arnold talked about possible opportunities to raise private funds for the costs such as signage. So I'm hoping we can add a statement along those lines into the minutes. That's it.
And Sue actually sent that to me, Sue actually sent me those corrections, so that was very, very helpful, so I can get those in there, that's for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Any other corrections, deletions, changes? Hearing none, voting on the amended minutes of February. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carried.
Did we get a second for that?
Didn't hear one.
I don't think we had a second.
What was that?
No second yet.
We didn't have a second
Didn't have
for
a
that.
second?
Yeah,
Do
so
that over again.
Pat moved with some amendments, and then Sue had some friendly amendments, but then I don't believe we had a second.
Oh, okay, we need a second then on that.
I will second.
Okay,
Sue will second.
well, let's do it again, just to make sure we're doing everything the way we're supposed to. All those in favor of the amended minutes signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
You're down to item 3, public appearances. Any Zoom appearances for any non-agenda items?
Let me ask a question at this point. In the February meeting, we did get a registration slip from Michael Stevens, correct? We did not? I thought he handed you one.
I did not.
Yeah, they do have to fill out a request to speak form.
Yeah, I didn't receive that.
He's in the minutes.
Yeah.
He's noted there. It's just, the official registration
Right.
slip. I don't know, you could check the video.
Well,
I thought he turned one in.
with COVID and all that kind of stuff, I guess we'll definitely put him in there, that's for sure.
He's in the minutes,
Yeah,
yes.
he is, yeah.
Just for your records more.
When they're on Zoom, they have to contact you first anyway. don't they?
Yes, if they want to speak, right.
Oh,
Got it. Okay, seeing no appearances, I will close that portion of the meeting and move on to a review and approve of the agenda.
I'll move approval of the agenda as given.
Is there a second?
Second.
A second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carried. We are down to 5A, Community Gardens Report, Quarry Hill, Hugel, Jamestown, Briarwood Parks. And Scott, you want to open that up?
Yes, thanks, Mark. And actually, the Wade Thompson, who is from the Planning Department, I see that he's on. He was kind enough to provide a summary report, an update report of the Swan Creek Gardens. And that was in response to, I know Dave had some questions regarding the current community gardens. And then I know what we're looking to do is to have additional community gardens in Quarry Hill Park, Hugel, Jamestown, and Briarwood. But before we get to that, if I could ask Wade to maybe run through the report that he provided. I will mention too that I see Dave Carlson. He's representing the Quarry Hill Garden. I don't know if I see Dave Haight, Dave Herbst, excuse me. I know he was going to talk about the Hugel Jamestown Gardens, and I do see Mary there, who is representing the Briarwood Community Garden. So certainly when Wade is done with his report, I guess I'd like to offer it up to each of those individuals to talk about their request at that specific park. So.
Okay.
All right, can folks hear me? Great.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks, Scott, and thanks, Parks Commission, for having me. Good to see you all again. Scott, I'm going to share my screen if that's okay.
Please do.
Yep, that's okay.
Absolutely.
Yes.
All right, so hopefully folks can see basically just a Word doc. And this was a memo that I put together, was included in your packet, so hopefully folks have had a chance to take a look at it. I'm just going to briefly run through it, just spend about 5 minutes kind of touching on some highlights. So basically, as Scott mentioned, this is kind of a status of what we're calling our Gardens and Parks program. Information is being provided at the request of the Parks Commission. So we'll just talk about kind of how the program evolved, kind of how we got to where we are today. We'll talk about some enabling policy for gardens in our parks. We'll talk about demand for gardens in our parks. We'll talk about infrastructure, staff impact, and then we'll wrap it up and hopefully talk about what comes next. So again, staff has spent a considerable amount of time the past couple of years researching gardens and parks. Back in 2015, 2016, we kind of saw this as an emerging trend in our park system. So we really want to be progressive with staying on top of those emerging trends. As such, we did start on some research. I think maybe a way to sum it up in terms of research and benefits of gardens and parks is essentially 4 things. This idea of a passive, low impact outdoor recreational opportunity, advancing what we call our sustainable local food system, enhancing the idea of food security among our city residents, and then just this kind of broad idea of social equity and cohesion and interaction premised on increased use of public lands. So as a result of that research, looking at case studies, looking at what Madison was doing, staff was a really good idea to, again, explore the idea of gardens on city park properties. So with that, we do have some enabling legislation. Again, back in 2016, we put together a resolution that was passed by council, specifically stating for allowance of gardens in city parks. Furthermore, our Parks and Open Space Plan adopted that same year also specifically mentioned the idea of gardens in city parks. And then we also do have an ag plan. I'm sure, as you all know, Fitchburg's pretty unique. We've got 11,000 acres of agricultural land. So we do have kind of a standalone, what we call agriculture plan. Obviously, gardens and parks is a component of agriculture. So that idea is mentioned in that plan as well. So basically 3 policy documents that specifically speak to gardens in city parks. As it relates to demand, and Scott touched on this, we do have currently 1 garden in Swan Creek Park. I believe we started that back in 2018. The garden has grown every year, to use a bad pun. We have waiting lists. We've expanded the garden every year. We still have waiting lists. We hope to expand the garden again this year, and I anticipate another large waiting list. I'm getting inquiries already, people asking to get on that waiting list. To that point, we have been approached in the past few months by 3 separate city residents regarding becoming garden leaders or helping to initiate a garden at 3 different parks, Quarry Hill Park, Hugo Jamestown Park, and then Briarwood Park. And as a staff person, I think that's a great classic example of a policy being out there, a good policy being out there, and then citizens seeing that policy, seeing how it works, and then taking the initiative to make their parks a better place through, some new and unique uses in those park spaces. So again, kind of moving back into this idea of demand and research, there are some existing private, I'll call them private gardens in the city. There are a couple school gardens that I guess you could say are quasi-public. I don't quite know what the requirements are for those gardens, but I imagine you might have to be a student or a parent of a student to use those gardens. So again, a real, kind of a lack of gardens, public garden space in the city. But the list you're seeing in front of you is a list we compiled of gardens in the city back in 2016. And then moving on to infrastructure, what's really nice about gardens and parks is just the incredible low impact of the use. Very little is needed, very little resources, money is needed to do gardens. Obviously, land is one requirement. We have plenty of that in our park system. Water distribution is also vital. Some parks are more equipped for gardens than others based on their water infrastructure. And then signage is just kind of a requirement. We think it's good anytime we get a new use in a park, we want to make sure we have signage that lets people know, kind of what that use is about. So just basic, community park here kind of signage kind of thing. In terms of more optional infrastructure, again, storage is a nice feature, whether it be a park shelter, a little storage shed, storage box, whatever it might be for folks to store tools. Restrooms are obviously a nice amenity if folks are going to be gardening for a couple hours, having a restroom nearby would make a lot of sense. And then fencing, certainly isn't required, but might be a nice aesthetic amenity, to have a perimeter fence around the garden. Certainly gardeners are allowed to fence their own plots, to keep out rodents and that sort of thing. Summing the infrastructure discussion up, in the text is right there, but for a garden like Swan Creek, we're talking a couple $100 a year max to maintain that infrastructure. And then to offset that, we do charge $25 per plot for gardeners there. So essentially, the revenue we're getting from plots offsets any of that minimal infrastructure cost. And certainly, as this discussion evolves, if the commission is interested in having discussions about ways we can, maybe make some additional financial allocations towards enhancing our gardens and parks program, staff obviously would be open to that discussion as well. Moving on to staff impact, again, very minimal. I guess you could, if we had to kind of identify a gardens and parks manager, I guess I would be that at this point in time. Certainly Scott, Scott's got an equal partner as parks director. Him and I are in touch frequently about this program. Our rec director, Chad, plays a role. He collects applications, advertises applications on the parks, rec listserv. And then Joran, our parks and maintenance supervisor, tills the plots once a year. And then I think a couple times a year, maybe drops off a couple loads of mulch. So, I think generally speaking, I keep using the word low impact, for the park space. It's low impact for city staff as well. Certainly at some point in the future, I think staff is conscious of a time where the capacity to manage gardens might outweigh what staff is able to do. We don't see that happening in the foreseeable future, especially given that really low impact that it has on staff and the fact that moving forward, for gardens to happen in our parks, we do require what we're calling a garden leader. Basically a city resident whose task is to kind of initiate garden development, schedule meetings, manage gardeners once the gardens gets going. And to that point earlier, I mentioned the 3 gardens that we're exploring. We do have an interested garden leader type at this early stage. So that's, I think, a really good thing to point out. In terms of just wrapping it up, I guess actually one more thing on impact. I think anytime we manage public properties, public resources, there is potential for complaints or those sorts of things. We did get one complaint, I believe, in the 3 years at our Swan Creek Park Garden regarding an appearance of one plot. We talked with that gardener. He quickly rectified the issue, and that was the extent. Again, talking about a staff burden, that was the extent of that burden on staff. The counterpoint to that is I've received numerous compliments via email from park users just complimenting on how the garden has really added to the park atmosphere, and it's people are just really appreciative of the fact that the garden is there. Kind of wrapping it up, again, I touched on it a little bit, but I think, as a staff person, I think this Gardens and Parks program really typifies what staff wants to do with policy. The idea of research, progressive trends, leading to slowly incremental policy formation, leading to implementation, on the ground, and then accruing those benefits to the city park system and its users. And again, I think the idea of, people taking ownership in their parks, Dave Carlson, Dave Herbst, Mary Willitson, the folks that are interested in starting gardens in their parks, I commend them for doing so. And I think, that equal partnership of residents and staff working together to really create really cool, unique park uses is exactly where we hope this program would go. So with that, I'll just kind of make a pitch that, I hope this report was essentially just that, a report, and, staff would really think it'd be beneficial to the city to keep, pushing this program forward, and certainly open to improvements and critiques. But I think at big picture, we would love to keep this program going. So with that, I can certainly take any questions or comments that the commission might have.
Patrick, do you have any question?
Yeah, Wade, you mentioned water is vital. Now, in Swan Creek, there's an extra water source was put into the gardens there. In Hugo Jamestown, I don't know exactly where the site is that you have selected. I would think that if it's within, a couple hundred feet of the shelter, a garden hose could be strung to some water faucet on the Hugo Jamestown shelter. Briarwood doesn't have any water source there since there's no shelter. So how does that work out for water?
And Scott, feel free to jump in here, but you're exactly right, Patrick. And I think to your first point about Swan Creek, I talked about slow incremental implementation. The first year at the garden, we didn't want to make a big investment with the water line, not knowing what the garden reception would be. But so we started with a hose that year. It was a couple 100 feet hose. It wasn't super convenient, but the gardeners were troopers and they made it work. And then I think the second year we put in a water line for a relatively small cost. But yeah, I think as we move forward, I think we're going to try to look at areas, parks that are conducive to having that water distribution available. I think you mentioned Hugo Jamestown, some options there. You're right, Briarwood doesn't currently have, infrastructure, but potentially we could look at some, storage containers and distribution that way. So I think we just, we'll be creative. There may be parks, that just aren't conducive to gardens, but, that's part of our research and trying to figure out, how to make these things work.
Yeah, when you mentioned about Briarwood there and making some water available, I know this would be extra work for the staff, but yeah, if there was a container put there, I'm just thinking of this as you're speaking, and the staff wanted to come along with that big water truck that we have and just fill the container periodically. You know, they've got a limited source. Hopefully one gardener doesn't use it all up, but that would provide them some water. If you wanted to do that. In Hugo Jamestown, is the site that you're selecting anywhere near the shelter to use a garden hose?
Yeah, so Dave Herbst, Scott, and I, we're just kind of throwing ideas around of sites, and I don't think we have anything nailed down specifically yet, but I think we were looking, and Scott helped remind me, like on the southern part of the property, if I remember correctly.
If you're familiar with Hugo Jamestown, we've got the ball diamond there, and then actually the line between the city of Madison and the city of Fitchburg, we're actually looking in that off the left field area, which is relatively close to the shelter. And again, I think when we look at locating the gardens, you know, the idea of a multi-generational use of that area, mom and dad might be gardening, and then the kids can go play on the playground and those kinds of things. So that's another factor that we look at when we begin to start to locate and figure out where the best spot might be. And I might maybe throw out a compliment to Mary from Briarwood. We talked about cistern, and she was actually ready to buy a water container and all of that kind of stuff, so I had to kind of slow her down on that. But we've talked about different ways to collect water, and that's, you know, conservation and those kinds of things. So that certainly Briarwood does pose that challenge of water.
Okay. And then, is there any, let's say if someone rents a plot in 1 year, do they have some dibs on that same plot for the next year so that if they want, they can maintain it, keep their fences up even? Or?
Yeah, so basically how we're handling it now, Patrick, is, you know, if you live in the neighborhood, you get first preference. And then if you're a Fitchburg resident, you know, it's a second preference. But yeah, if gardeners want to return, they have the ability to retain their plot. And I just ask those gardeners to let me know by, you know, a date certain, and then I know how many plots I have available for you know, open for new gardeners. So yeah.
Okay. Do some of them have multiple plots, which of course would be times the fee?
Yeah. So I believe now we limit it to 2 plots per like person or per family or whatever. And I think at Swan Creek there might have been 1 or 2 folks with 2 plots. And just so folks know, we have 10 by 10s and 10 by 20s. So, and I would say those are kind of mid-sized plots for community gardens. I know there is a 20 by 20 plot size that's common, but we just felt that was a little bit big, you know, given our kind of our parks. So
is it based on a 10 by 10 is $25 and double that is double?
I believe right now we're just doing a flat fee of $25 per plot.
Oh, so if they take a 10 by 20 or so,
yeah,
25. Okay.
Yeah, it's just kind of whatever their preference is. You know, and certainly we can rethink sliding scales for plots if we want, but we just did some research and of what other people were doing. We just thought one flat fee for, regardless of plot size, made the most sense. So
whatever they want to take on, in other words.
Exactly.
Okay.
And if there isn't any more questions for Wade, I guess I'd like to throw it out to the different folks that are interested in trying to put together a community garden for their park. If they had any thoughts or comments that they would like to share, and let's and actually maybe just before that a little bit about the process that I go through in order to continue with these projects. The first thing that we do is certainly we have the interest from the resident, and then we do work on a survey that I send through the neighborhood association, but specifically I send through the mail a letter or a survey to each of the direct neighbors of the park to let them know what's going on, but then to determine if there's, you know, major concerns or red flags, and we're actually at where we did do a survey for the Briarwood with the help of Mary, and I did include it in the packet. There was a tally, and actually we're we're at the point now where we're ready to send the letter to the Hugo Jamestown Neighborhood Association, or along with the direct neighbors of the park, along with Quarry Hill. So that's a little bit of where we're at in each of the different parks. So I think with that, maybe I'll throw it to Mary at Briarwood to see if she had any general thoughts or comments that she'd like to offer to the discussion.
You're muted. Mary, you're muted.
Mary, you got to unmute. No,
Mute. There we go.
there
Thank
you go.
Okay, regarding the water thing, I had found several of the water containers for sale that were used, and these are expensive water containers that hold 300 gallons. And I looked at them brand new. They can run up to $800. But I found several of them for sale in different areas around Wisconsin for like $75 each, and they were in excellent shape. If it would actually come to the point where we couldn't have the gardens because the city did not want to purchase those water things, I would be willing to purchase them myself. I'm also willing to be a garden supervisor. I don't know that we need restrooms. If we did, a porta potty would work, but I mean, the subdivision is a small subdivision. Most people could make it to their homes if it stays within the neighborhood. And I guess that was it. I just feel really strongly that this is a really good thing for our neighborhood. I know that it was tried by just personal attempt many years ago before I moved into the subdivision, which was in 1984, and the biggest problem was the water situation.
And Mary, if I might add, I included in the packet, we did a survey back in April of 2020. In regards to the number one question, I favor establishing a community garden in Briarwood. Of the respondents, 17 said yes, 4 said no. And then I have no opinion. We didn't receive any responses to that. But then the big question was, if we did have garden plots at Briarwood, would you look to purchase a plot? And we actually had 10 residents that indicated that they would. 4 said they wouldn't, but they were, glad to see that it was an opportunity. So we've got some potential customers there already.
Patrick has a question for the speaker.
Actually, first I'll ask Scott. There's a couple of words in there on your tally page. I could not figure out what you wrote. Could you translate? Well, yes, see, question 1, yes, has some words. What does that say?
It depends on location.
Is that what that, okay, all right. And then in number 3, no, what does it say?
Included with yes for question 1.
Okay. And then a comment here, watching the Craigslist free ads, I've seen 4 foot by 4 foot by 4 foot cubic water containers given away for free. Next time I see one, I'll let Scott know.
Okay, then let's roll to, I see Dave Carlson there. He's interested in Quarry Hill. So Dave, if you had some comments you wanted to share?
I saw Sarah Schrader had a question. I'll pause to let her jump in.
Sorry, I just had a quick question when Mary mentioned restrooms. Wade, do you have any data on how many people are outside of the neighborhood? I know you mentioned that you offer preference to the neighborhood. Do you get many applicants that are outside of the neighborhood?
Yeah, I don't have that offhand, but I could certainly, we asked that question on the application. I feel like most folks at Swan Creek are residents, or like neighborhood residents. But yeah, there might be a few folks that are, not in the neighborhood that are driving. But I just want to clarify too, I don't think, again, restrooms are obviously a nice option, a nice feature. I don't think we're envisioning a community garden being the impetus for installing a restroom, if you know what I mean. Scott, chime in there, but just to kind of clarify, any concerns about gardens being a slippery slope to a lot of part cost kind of thing.
I would agree. I would agree.
Thank you. Thank you, Dave. Sorry.
Yeah, good evening, commissioners. Thanks for taking up the issue. I'll confirm that I too am more than happy to be a liaison for the gardeners who might choose to use plots at the Quarry Hill Neighborhood Park. I saw the story in the Fitchburg Star in December or January and thought this would be another fine thing for Fitchburg parks, sort of like how, we've got a dog park now, we've got splash pads, we've got other creative, interesting uses for public land, and really community gardens are not a novel or new idea by any means, but still pretty new to Fitchburg, and I'm glad to hear the details from Wade's report that all suggest things are going pretty well. And only thing I wish that you all could do is guarantee a bumper crop, but we'll take our chances, won't we, Mary?
No, that is a guarantee from the Parks Department, so.
So Scott,
Thank you, Dave. Looks like Dave Gardner's got a question.
Yeah, I have a couple of comments. Wade, thank you for the presentation. I'm glad to see the background and the work that is gone heretofore. I think it also is a good program. My only concern was that it gets spread too thin, but I guess I would suggest that maybe on an annual basis or some periodic basis, you try to knit together all the leaders or the participants in the park to kind of have a summary of what's good and what could be improved. I do think it takes some structure, and I think that if some of the parks or gardens are larger, that actually could be a plus rather than just a handful of people. So again, thank you for the summary, and it is apparent that thought has been put into this program.
Yeah, thanks for those comments, David. And I would just add, I think that idea of kind of a gardener, little powwow, year end kind of thing is a great idea. To that point, when we started the conversation with the two Daves and Mary, we did that same thing. We kind of had an initial kickoff phone call where we all kind of talked about collective issues and kind of did some brainstorming. But yeah, I think once the gardens are up and going, getting those leaders back together to, kind of do a feedback session is a good idea. So appreciate it.
say, Scott, I have a question for, I don't know, Scott or Wade, it doesn't really matter, but when you get a new garden plot, do we pull up the sod for these people? Or who does that? Is there any preparation other than fencing that we would provide?
Nope, the Parks Department, they rototill the gardens. They rototill them in preparation for the season, and then actually, we typically will do it in the spring. And we do that for the new plots, and then also there is a question on whether or not gardeners want their plot tilled, so Wade does ask that question to make sure that we don't till it if they do not want it tilled. But yeah, that's what Jordan and the Parks Department does for us.
Okay.
Do you have a sod cutter to cut the sod away and use it somewhere else?
Nope, we just rototill it in, and then the gardeners are aware of that, and if they need to, kind of rake through and pick out the grass, and then they need to do that, but it really does a really nice job, so. And I don't see David Herbst there.
Dave is working on getting in right now.
Oh, he is, okay.
In fact, here he is now.
Impeccable timing, Dave. Is he? There he is. All right, you're up, Dave. You're up, Dave. Any thoughts or comments that you'd like to share with the commission? You're on mute, Dave.
Apologize for my tardiness. I got an emergency call from work and fortunately Sue.
No,
Sue
no
called me.
worries, no worries.
Someone gave me a call. All I wanna add is, you know, we've had a lot of interest from my neighbors in, having a community garden in Jamestown. Probably about 50-50, half of the residents are from Fitchburg and probably the other half are from Madison. But I'm seeing a lot of momentum here and, we'd really like to get this started. You know, Wade and Scott have picked out a spot, you know, that we could potentially use. So I guess I'm here to see if the Parks Commission members have any questions for me or see any obstacles to what we'd like to do in the Jamestown Park.
I have a question, and it would be something for Scott or Wade to sort out, I suppose, is, it is a community park for two communities, so is there any way or reason to delineate, well, I guess for information purposes, at the very least, who of those who are signing up, are they residents of Madison or Fitchburg?
Yeah, we'll ask that question on the application. I guess, you know, big picture, these are public park spaces, and just like a Madison resident could use a swing set or a ball diamond, you know, they could certainly
Right.
use a community garden. But yeah, I think the idea would, again, kind of create a tier of preferences of first for the neighborhood, maybe then for city residents, Pittsburgh residents, and then maybe third for Madison residents. But, you know, to that point, now that I think about it, I think it probably makes sense for us to reach out to Madison Parks. You know, just because it is for that park specifically, just because it is a joint park, just to kind of let them know what we're up to. And they might have some thoughts too about, you know, resources or collaboration, so.
Maybe even a different location.
Yeah, the location that Scott and Wade picked out is almost right on the border. You know, it's in Fitchburg, but it's right, it's really right on the border. The power line goes through the park, and that's the division between Madison and Fitchburg right there.
So I think with that, I would, you know, if there isn't any other further questions, if we could get a motion and a second.
Just a little caveat here. As we were talking, I just got an email from a gardener interested in a Swan Creek plot. So just a little bit of a perspective for the commission, so.
So they're watching the Park Commission meeting?
Well, or it was just, it's a coincidence, maybe, one of those,
Oh, I'm sure they're watching. I'm sure they're
sign from
watching.
above, yeah.
So if we could,
This is going to be for informational purposes. There's nothing for us to approve or anything.
no, actually, it's an action item, so I'd like first and a second to approval to continue to have the community garden, you know, look to have community gardens at Quarry Hill, Hugo, Jamestown, and Briarwood. So it is an action item, so I wanted to.
Okay, just to progress on these particular sites, is that it?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, well, then I need a motion and a second on,
I'd make a motion to continue the research for the Hugo, Jamestown, Quarry Hill, and Briarwood Park garden options.
Well, and to clarify, we're looking to do it this year. That's our goal.
on the parks noted here on there, correct, okay.
I'll second.
Second, okay, thank you. Discussion on the motion? Hearing none, voting on the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Wade.
All right. Appreciate
Thank
the
you,
folks
everyone.
that
Sorry for being late.
spoke on
That's
this
okay, David.
issue. All right, item 5B, ordinance 2021-005, an ordinance amending chapter 22 zoning ordinance to amend section 22-564 for the Park and Recreation zoning district relative to dimensional standards for conditional use. Who want to introduce
Yep,
that? Okay.
if I could, Mark, thank you. And actually, if you recall, this was a an informational item that was brought to the Park Commission last month, and actually the comments and the thoughts that the Park Commission shared were taken back to Wade and the Planning Department, and I'm thinking that they found a solution here that's going to answer those questions. And I guess what I'd like to do is Sonia is here. She's the Planning Director. She might want to provide some general comments, and then Wade is really the architect of the reason for this zoning, and we go to him and then open it up for questions. So Sonia, thank you.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me. Sonia Kriesel, City Planner and Zoning Administrator. Without going into any of the hub background, you are all very familiar with that and have put in a lot of good work there. Just speaking specifically to this ordinance amendment, the issue at hand is really the conversation of passive and more sort of traditional park development versus a more active and urban park development as it relates to our Park and Rec zoning district dimensional standards. So the active and more urban park might be appropriate in some cases, and that's sort of been the discussion recently, specifically around the neighborhood hub proposed in the North Fish Hatchery Road neighborhood. So following the discussion in February here at the Parks Commission, and also following an initial discussion at the Plan Commission meeting in February, staff put together an ordinance amendment, and that's included in your packet tonight and on the agenda. And it proposes a solution to allow the more urban style park, different than what Fitchburg has throughout the rest of the city, recognizing that it might be appropriate, but only in a context where those urban conditions exist. So what we're suggesting here is basically changing, allowing a conditional use permit review to reduce dimensional standards, and again, only when it's appropriate in a specific context. So the front, side, and rear zoning setbacks that are typical of permitted uses today in parks, those actually remain unchanged. So that would not affect existing park development and would continue just like it does today for normal sort of park structures. But we've added that conditional use permit whereby review by the Plan Commission, a few of the setbacks could be reduced. So I think this works really well because it does provide a public input opportunity by requiring a mailing to property owners in the surrounding area. And then it requires Plan Commission review. So of course, at a public body and a public meeting, allowing that input. And then there are standards for conditional uses across the city in general, which requires that the Plan Commission takes certain considerations into perspective. And really in a nutshell, those considerations would require the request to be compatible with surrounding properties. So, they wouldn't be able to approve a conditional use permit if it was found to be so drastically different or would impair the orderly development of the neighborhood or be at conflict with the surrounding uses. So in my opinion, this is a really good way to sort of narrow the focus, not impact traditional park development where it's working really well, and to provide an opportunity where the public can be involved and the Plan Commission can take into consideration the specific context. So the specificities of the ordinance language, it would affect, as I mentioned, just a few of the dimensional standards. It would allow them to reduce front, side, and rear, as well as the open space percentage. So I think that summarizes it. I can address questions or concerns from a zoning perspective as well.
And just as a prelude to that, the Common Council did review this ordinance and referred it to the Park Commission. So, and it sounds like it went, I don't know if did it go to the Plan Commission, Sonia?
The Plan Commission reviewed it similarly to the Parks Commission in February, where it was more at a conceptual level. Okay. At that time, the ordinance language wasn't actually provided, but we did share it during the meeting as an idea that we wanted to move forward with. So the Plan Commission was supportive, no concerns raised, and it seemed like they thought this was a good step forward as well.
So the Plan Commission will still, review it as it's referred from the Common Council.
You probably mentioned this, and I didn't hear, but when a conditional use is requested, is property owners within 500 feet notified by mail?
Yep, our standard is 300 feet.
Okay, 300 feet? Okay.
That's right.
Thank you, Sonia.
Patrick, you had a question?
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, first question here. It says this will be reviewed by the Plan Commission, period. Why not the Park Commission also?
Yeah, so the ordinance tonight it is scheduled on your agenda for action. So that's your March meeting, and then March 16th, this will go to the Plan Commission, and that body is required to take action before it goes back to council.
No, but I mean, in the sequence of referral, when one of these conditional use permits goes out, why isn't it referred to the Plan Commission and the Parks Commission and then to the council?
Right. Authority for conditional use permit review, I believe it's statutory, that's granted to the Plan Commission. So just like all other zoning issues and zoning setbacks, we would, Plan Commission would have authority there per our ordinances. That being said, if this is a governmental facility, which it would be, the Parks Commission, as I understand your processes, is usually involved in sort of the site plan and the design and the facility decisions there.
I mean, Parks and Rec wouldn't, assumably, the parks would be requesting the conditional use.
The applicant, yeah.
And therefore, Plan Commission probably would be the appropriate body to review it.
As long as there's
Sounds kind of weird, because, it's all in-house almost. But.
Yeah, I mean, these are for parks, and we are the Park Commission. So as long as that we have some step in this, if we are the requester from the Park Commission, and then it goes out to be referred, that might take care of it.
We would be the only, this is just to Park and Rec properties, so we would be the only ones that would be involved in this potential conditional use.
The only one making the request?
For Park and Rec, I would suspect, for Park and Rec
Okay.
properties.
As long as that's kind of clear on our understanding of what the process would be here. I would not like to see the Park Commission just cut out of this. However this goes, wherever the request would come from, wherever the approvals are, we ought to have some review, approval, whatever on this commission.
Yeah, we're the designers of the Park and Rec properties, so.
I kind of see where he's going with this, because, does the request ever go to the Park Commission, or does it just go from you to Plan Commission?
It certainly would be a project that I would bring to the Park Commission for their review and approval.
Logically, yeah. But
Scott, do you mind if I throw up some visuals that I think might add some
Please.
clarification of the discussion? Yeah, I'm just going to share my screen. So, Sonia kind of alluded to the hub as one project that would benefit from this. So, just as an example, let me just throw up an image. So if people can see that image in front of us. So, obviously the hub, we vetted this through the Parks Commission a couple of times, and we will vet this through again. And, any final design of the hub will go through the Park Commission. So, you guys will be weighing in on the setbacks prior to this, a conditional use even being requested. So to Scott's point, you guys as the commission, as parks designers, you will see this stuff.
So I don't know if you had any other thoughts that you wanted to share, Wade, or we could certainly open it up to questions.
Yeah, I guess just big picture again, I think when we talk about, why we're here tonight and why we're kind of, staff is proposing these things, and Sonia touched on it, it's the idea of promoting urban form, per our comp plan, that's kind of our direction is to use land a little bit more intensively, to move towards that idea of healthy neighborhoods. And then, just this idea of more urban parks now and in the future, it's really about maximizing and optimizing the use of very small park properties. And I think as staff, we think we're likely to see more of these properties in the future. And I think, the graphic on the left kind of illustrates the point of, in the North Fitchburg Road neighborhood, we've got 2,500 residential units. essentially 0 City of Fitchburg developed park spaces. So if and when we get parks in these neighborhoods, we want to create park spaces that are used and that have uses that draw people to them. So, you know, we want this, we want the top slide, we don't want the bottom slide. We don't want, you know, huge setbacks that limit our ability to create good intensive uses on park space. So, so I guess, you know, maybe the hub is one example of kind of an imminent example of why we're, you know, requesting this sort of change.
Patrick? go
Yeah,
ahead.
for Sonia, I just want to see, first part of my question here, if you agree with this. I've heard from a past Plan Commission chair, Carol, when she was in a situation at the time, she was explaining to, well, at a council or something, that the Plan Commission looks at the ordinances and the Plan Commission makes sure that whatever kind of request comes before the Plan Commission, that it fits the ordinances. That sound agreeable with you?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. So I'm, the way that I am hearing you describe this and the way that I've read the change in this ordinance here, it does sound okay with me that what would be requested would be reviewed. It's a conditional use. In other words, somebody comes up with, I want to, you know, whoever, park commissioner, whoever, wants to put some building, let's say, 1 foot away from a park property line. They don't get it automatically. The ordinance doesn't say 0 setback on this change. It's still conditional use, so any request for less setback has to go through review, has to be approved. Correct? Okay.
That's correct. Yep.
Okay, so I'm just wondering here, this is being changed just for the purpose of the hub at this point. I wouldn't like it, and I don't think it's going this way, that this would just take away all of the setback in any park, any open space, to 0 setback anywhere. It's all by request. This all has to be approved one by one. Since it's just for the hub right here at this point, I'm kind of wondering what's the difference of just having, at the time, a waiver of the ordinance as it stands right now, rather than this right here, which changes the ordinance.
Right. So of course, the impetus for this conversation here is the hub, since that's our first, you know, attempt at this more urban active park compared to the more traditional development that we've had in Fitchburg. That's not to say that an urban park couldn't happen somewhere else in a different location. So it would certainly apply to other situations.
Well, sure.
To your question about the waiver, well,
Waiver
first of all, the
versus
waiver
this
doesn't
way.
exist, so all of the zoning sort of standards must be complied with, no matter what the park or the request is. And second of all, you know, maybe more in zoning language is the opportunity for variances. So property owners in certain situations may request a variance from the rules when they prove that they're unable to comply with the setbacks like everyone else in their zoning district is required to. But the standards for that really aren't appropriate in this situation, since they must show that there's a unique hardship due to physical property conditions that's preventing them from complying with the rules. So that definitely wouldn't be the case here. This is a different situation. We're not constrained by a steep slope that prevents us from complying with the setback, for example.
Okay,
So
I
it just
see.
wouldn't be an opportunity available to us.
So the variance is in a hardship situation, which is, this is not a hardship. In other words, on that way of the ordinance as it's stated, and then asking for a variance wouldn't be approved probably, because the situation wouldn't fit a hardship situation. Whereas changing this ordinance to allow less setback, but with conditional use, that's appropriate. That's what you're saying,
That's a
right?
good summary. Yep.
Okay, I understand.
In
Thank
that
you.
Wouldn't you also say that it's consistent with how other zoning districts are dealt with whenever there's setback requests?
Yes, so there's a similar provision, for example, in our standard residential zoning district, the RL category, where property owners have to comply with their rear yard setback, but there is an allowance where the property owner may encroach a little bit further if they're doing a 3 seasons or a screened porch addition as opposed to a fully enclosed structure. So that's just another similar example where that further encroachment is allowed, but only upon conditional use review by the Plan Commission, and if they can determine that it's compatible with surrounding properties, a public hearing notice is mailed out, etc. So I like the fact that this is similar to that process that we already have, that we utilize this approach in other situations.
It's just additional safeguards and communication, and everybody kind of knows what's going on.
I don't know if you can answer this, but if, I know there's certain state statutes that designate responsibilities for different, what am I gonna say, committees and commissions within a city or town. And I'm not sure if this would fall under that, but would that not also be possibility?
So I'm not sure I follow the question.
Well, there's certain things that are stated responsibilities in state statutes that require a community, for instance, to have planning and zoning and a plan commission. And certain responsibilities of those would be controlling setback requirements and such. And I don't know if that's something that could be dictated by state statutes or not, but because it's so specific.
Yeah, the municipality is enabled to create their own zoning standards, whatever those might be. And so the Plan Commission is the controlling authority there for both the zoning code in general, as well as review authority for conditional use permits. So if the question is whether this is enabled by state law or other statutes, then yes. If I'm still misunderstanding the question, please let me know.
Yeah, that's okay. I think I understand it, so. Any other questions or comments for Wade or Katie? Okay.
I was just going to say that I do think it makes sense. From historically speaking, we do see the park plan, so I think we'll be in the loop. I like the idea of having the public forum at the plan meeting, that I can kind of walk through this makes sense.
Yeah. I guess if we're done, I guess there's a ordinance 2021-05 or 005, excuse me, amending the chapter 22 zoning ordinance.
Yeah, I'd make a motion to approve ordinance 2021-005, amending the chapter 22 zoning ordinance.
Very good. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second, okay. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Voting on the motion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you, Sonia and Wade. Appreciate it.
Thanks for your
Have a
time.
good night.
Right.
Have a good night.
5C is library story walk at Mckee Farms Park.
And if I might, Mark, this too was, I believe, brought to the Park Commission, was it last month or maybe a couple months ago where,
I think it was November, Scott.
thank you, where the idea was brought to the Park Commission. The Park Commission had some questions and some thoughts and ideas, and the library team, which I see Tim Powers is here, along with
Hello, everyone.
with Kevin Richmond is here also. He's going to be the fabricator of the structures. So they're here before us tonight to make a final pitch for this. They did a nice PowerPoint, and also included in it is a map of the specific locations that these structures would be installed. So I think with that, I don't know if you wanted to do a quick summary, Tim or Kevin.
Yeah, I can do a quick little summary there. It's not too big, but like you said, back in November, a staff member attended this meeting and talked about what a story walk is, why we want to have one here in Fitchburg, and why we're choosing the location that we'd like to install it, Mckee Farms Park. At that time, like you said, Scott, the group asked if they could maybe get some more information or see a prototype. So with input from Public Works, library staff, we selected a design, and Kevin there, with his fantastic skills, built one of the kiosks. And then what we did is we installed it on one of the light posts by the library, at the park there on the path. It was pretty snowed in. So we did it here at the library, and we took some pictures so that you would have an idea of what it looks like. Can see the structure of it, see how it's posted to the actual light post itself. And then, like Scott just said, I believe that's in your packet. We put a little bit of information into the packet as well to help answer some of the questions you might have had ahead of time. And then also we put that map together to kind of give you an idea of how we would want to start at the shelter and work our way around and kind of get you an approximate location of each one of the light posts. And then what we're really hoping is that, you can see in the pictures what the prototype is. You have some more information. If you want to ask any questions, I'm happy to try to answer those. But what we're really hoping is that you would still consider moving forward possibly and approve the story walk, and we would love to start making more of those and hopefully get them installed right in time for our summer reading program to kick off. And we're real excited about it, and hopefully you guys are too. So yeah, just feel free to make any comments or questions.
I had a couple comments. First of all, I'm supportive of the effort, but I guess my suggestion is instead of putting them on the post, to put them on a wood post. And I understand, talking to Scott, that it's easier to mow around and you don't have any other thing but in the way except the existing post. But I don't know. I think it's just be more stable. And when this thing reaches its life, we don't have a post that's all scoured up and the paint, looking bad on it. Because just looking at this, I can see where it would wobble, if somebody would touch it or move it or I just think over time it would look better. But, that's, I guess.
Just a comment on that. Feedback I've gotten from a few other libraries, just that they put up and tried to do the post. It would have to be a pretty good sized post. A lot of them get knocked down or the kids are leaning on it or something like that. When we went out there, both Kevin and I, shook that thing and pushed on that thing to see if we could wobble it around. It's pretty sturdy. You're going to have to really jump on it. I understand what you're talking about with the paint and stuff. And I don't know, maybe we could look at a way to maybe have a padding or something to help with paint, but I'm not sure on that one. We'd have to talk that over.
I work with mechanical things.
Sure.
There's no way you're going to make a square box fit on a round pole and have it stable. It just isn't going to work. I think those posts that been established for, those free libraries, they're never vandalized. I just don't see that issue as being a problem. And the only thing I would see from Scott's point of view is having one more thing to mow around, but
yeah,
I still think it would work better. But the other comment I had was somehow you've got to get that bottom frame to drain or caulk that thing really good, because you're going to get water wicking up underneath there, just because of the nature of it sloping and the water damming up at that frame. So I don't know, maybe a little thought could be put into that and figure out a way to avoid that.
There is a space between the trim on the bottom that allows it to drain on the, it comes down the plexiglass.
I don't know what's on the other side, but would it have any chance of wicking up underneath it?
Possibly, I've never done it before, so I don't know. I
Okay.
don't think so.
Yeah, I don't want to pick at it. So if you think, if you're confident, I'm okay with that. Go ahead.
That was my comment, or my thought on this as well. I know you're trying to put it down low and then tip it upwards so that someone, a short kid or something can see it, and also an adult can see it. But the bottom edge looks possibly like it would catch rain, catch snow. So yeah, I would kind of think if there was somewhere that the plexiglass could just extend down without that bottom frame, and then anything would just run straight off the bottom, and then, screw the plexiglass on. So I'd be concerned about it catching water and snow as well.
Maybe the water, I don't know if I mentioned, I don't think I did. I might have put it into the document, maybe not. But for snow, we plan on removing these during that portion of the year. So we're looking at, like, say, mid to late November or something, removing them and then not putting them back up until after February. Just because with snow, just during the winter time, you're not going to be able to see them as well with the snow there, and it's going to reduce the wear and tear on them. So we're looking at like 3/4 of the year it's up, and then 1/4 we take it down and make any repairs we need to do to them. But yes, I understand the rain too. So thank you.
Otherwise, these are built that somehow the cover, the plexiglass on it is removed, and over a long period of time, pages are changed. The book is changed.
Absolutely, yeah. So we'll be changing it quarterly. So our first thought when we did it was we'd pick 4 books a year. When we talked about the snow issue, we decided we were going to take it down. So we're looking at quarterly, so like 3 times a year. The pages on the inside are actually laminated as well and sealed so that if any dampness were to get in there, it wouldn't actually wreck the pages themselves. And again, we can make adjustments as we see if something, say it's starting to puddle up or something like that, we can definitely look at making adjustments.
Those things are going to loosen up. Those hose clamps aren't going to hold it.
Mark?
Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
Just a couple comments. I think it's an excellent program. I think it's an excellent idea. I do think that the comments about how is it going to wear or weather are important. I'm quite leery of wood in general in terms of the park and the elements. I would refer to the kids in the crossroad and the kind of maintenance that requires. There are other storyboards, so to speak, that talk about aspects of the park, nature, other things in terms of values, and they're all out of metal. And I wondered if you considered that, and I know it might, require somebody else to do the work, but again, I guess I would be interested in other library programs. How many have constructed them out of wood versus metal?
Sure, yeah. I don't know, Kevin, would you agree with me on part of the reason we're looking at wood is funding and cost for
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so that right there, that's like a huge reason why we're looking at the wood option. We're trying to go with the cedar because that seems to wear a little better. But yeah, the metal, that would be amazing, and I'd love to do that. But I don't know if we're going to be able to afford to do the metal options, just based on the funding that we have for it.
Okay, well, it's maybe it's a good idea to start a program, get community interest, and maybe there are some people that would step forward, a number of years now. I don't know if that would be 2 or 5 that would support that. So
I 100% agree with that. And actually, when we're looking at it, I think Kristen, you might not remember from last time, but part of the reason we picked Mckee is because it had such a nice path and it had the posts that we could use per suggestion. And it's kind of like that test trial. So if this is successful, can we get more funding and can we maybe build more for other parks, or could we increase the sturdiness or the material type that we're using and stuff? So it's kind of like look at this, we can offer this, let's see what kind of interest we generate and can we keep going forward?
Sure.
Yeah.
I would suggest that you could put a rubber sleeve between the stainless steel banding and the pole to try to preserve the paint. And at least some consideration should be given to that. I think Mark's comment is a good one. If it goes away, then you end up with a bunch of poles that look deteriorated, and maybe with that little effort and thought, you can experiment and solve that problem.
Yeah, I appreciate that because I actually didn't think of that ahead of time. So hearing you both make comments about it, it really helps us make the right design and preserve the poles. So thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
I just have one comment. I think it's a really clever idea. I can see kids using this. I like it that it's on the post, just that I can see it emitting light on kind of during the dusk time, that I think it makes sense. So I'm excited for this. I think this is a clever idea.
Wonderful, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? All right, probably need to,
Ready to vote.
if there is no questions or comments any further, then I would need a motion and a second to approve this item.
Can make a motion to approve the library story walk.
Very good. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, second. Discussion on the second, or the motion, excuse me. Hearing none. Voting on the motion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Tim, Kevin.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much for letting us come in tonight and talk and approving. So we really appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Let's see, Resolution R 5321, authorizing acceptance of construction bid for pickleball courts at Fahey Fields. Scott?
Yes, and this is our pickleball project adjacent to McGaw Park. This was the rebid of the project. A little bit, we did bid it differently the second time. The first time, if you recall, it was a, what do I want to say? It was a
Lump sum bid.
lump sum bid. Thank you, Patrick. And then there was concern raised at the council regarding that. So what we did do is we rebid the project and actually made it a base bid, which is just the pickleball courts along with the east-west path, and then with an alternate number one, which is the balance of the park development. And instead of a lump sum, it was an itemized line bid. We did bid it. We ended up with five proposals, with the lowest bid coming from, it looks like from Badgerland Excavation Corporation was a low bid. And we're, as staff, recommending the approval of that bid. I will note that the engineering estimate for the project, it did come in underneath the engineering estimate. The engineering estimate for both the base and the alternate was $652,000 and $647, and the low bid was $627,919. So it did come in under the engineering estimates as some additional information.
Just for clarification, Scott, the resolution approves all the amendments or additions?
Yep, it approves the.
You want to just go over that, just so we know exactly where all.
Yeah, if we pull up the resolution. What page is that? It is looks like it's page 30 of your packet, Resolution 5320. And it does include both the base bid and the alternate for a total, along with a 10% contingency, for a total of $689,919.30. I will further mention that this construction will be paid through park dedication dollars along with park improvement dollars. So there's no tax dollars that go to the construction of the project.
Okay. Go ahead, Patrick.
Comment and question. One thing about this formerly a lump sum bid, our past city administrator had made a comment at the city council when that one was turned down. He said that lump sum bid was common. We did it all the time. I disagree with that. And I'm glad to see this is broken up a little. I do not like lump sum bids or all at once, take it or leave it kind of situation. I much prefer it when contracts are broken up like this, where the reviewing commissions and councils and such can pick some things and reject other parts of it. A question then, Scott, do you have, can you recollect what how many bidders were on the first time and what the winning, best bid was the first time? You don't have that, okay.
No, as I recall, I think it may have been 3 or 4 bidders, and the price was a little bit less than this, maybe 650 or so, as I recall.
Oh, okay, I was kind of thinking I didn't look it up either.
And I
Thought
will,
maybe 2 or 3, and maybe it went down here.
another benefit to the line item bid is the engineers, they calculated an 18-inch undercut for the tennis courts and the parking lot. And
pickleball courts.
Pickleball, and the reality is that it probably won't need that 18 inches, so there could be a savings in that estimate. So that's another benefit of, and actually it's fair to everybody that whatever they take out, they get paid for, and if they don't take it out, then they don't get paid for it. So
Are the pickleball courts themselves, are they constructed very similarly to any other flat work?
Typical to a tennis court, basketball court, right. That's how it's constructed.
So they wouldn't say wouldn't need the 18 inches for additional stability of the soil so that you don't get perhaps less cracking or whatever.
Right, and that's what we're saying is that the engineers estimated 18 inches of undercut in order to get that stability, but the reality is that we're hoping that it's going to be less than that 18 inches of undercut. So with that, then there would be a savings because it is a line item bid.
It's kind of unusual for, say, a parking lot, but I don't know anything about tennis courts or pickleball courts, whether they're done a different way or not.
Yeah, they're telling me that we probably wouldn't need to do 18 inches of undercut, but the thought was let's do it now, and instead of doing a 6-inch of undercut and there's a price, and then come back and try and get more money and all of that kind of stuff. So we wanted to make sure that we had enough room in there for the undercut, so if anything else, it'll be a savings to the project.
So who and how is going to determine that depth of cut?
That'll be engineering, and staff will observe what they're doing, and actually they, as I'm learning, even when they do blacktop, they have slips, and they gotta hand in the slips and all of that, and that's how they get paid, by the material they excavate or the blacktop that they, the tonnage of blacktop that they do put down there. it's all line items, so they have to produce a ticket, and then they'll get paid for the amount of tonnage, for example, for blacktop.
So if they're excavating as much as 18 inches under this to put in gravel and base and everything, where does that soil go?
We'll have to get rid of it.
Well, I mean, is it trucked out of the whole site or used to, like, build up?
No,
This,
it would be
or-
removed from the site.
Kind of seems like a waste to then just truck it away somewhere else. I would think it should be a concern of a good solid base. I know this whole field area over there was just, changed and moved and built up and dug out and everything, and hopefully the earth movers that were driving on this made it darn good and solid in all the clay that they were moving around and burying. But this has been a big concern in other existing tennis courts about the cracking in the future, so hopefully this is built good and solid.
Well, and again, that's what the engineering department weighed towards that we're going to need a more undercut that we normally would need to create that stability.
Sarah has.
Yep. Sarah?
Oh, sorry. My only comment was that, just to give historical background, this did pass unanimously within Works earlier this week. And the conversation that I brought up then is that I have received a lot of resident support for this initiative. And at that time I counted where I believe I had received 25 inquiries, and I know Scott had been forwarding them on as well, where there is a lot of resident interest in playing pickleball. And I thought it was interesting just because prior to the Works meeting, I had read an article from the annual Sports and Fitness Industry Association report indicating that pickleball itself was up 21.3% in participation year over year, where I do think this is something that residents are showing interest. There is data to support the sport is popular and just really gaining in popularity. And I guess lastly, for Scott's comment on how this is funded, I know walking throughout the Fahey Fields neighborhood, and I see Patrick walking it as well, that neighborhood's very popular, that those residents, part of the developer's fees went towards that park development, where I do think this is deserved, and I think that there's the resident interest, that I think that this makes a lot of sense, and that I do think it's a well thought out plan. So I'm excited for these courts.
Go ahead, Patrick.
Yeah, that reminds me of a question. Now, I know there was, quite a few emails that Scott forwarded to us. I did not, unfortunately, have the ability to read them. I asked for paper copies, and I haven't seen that. It was a whole lot to download onto my computer, and I'd rather have it on paper. Did we have any indication from those emails about who were Fitchburg residents and who were not?
I would say that I think almost all were Fitchburg residents, that there was, I'm assuming that potentially people were aware that this would be a concern. And so the majority of the emails that I received, people included their address, and they were Fitchburg residents.
Okay. On page 21, it mentions addendum number 1 and 2 that were apparently added onto this. I don't know what those are. Can you explain those?
I think those had to do with the timing when the bids were due and those kinds of things. Tracy, they were a little bit behind, so we had to make addendums as far as the dates in which the proposals were due.
Does that relate to both the addendums?
I believe so. I'm trying to think how I could.
I didn't find anything in the packet information about what those were.
Right. And like I said, my recollection is that Tracy was busy with it, so we had to move the deadline to, as far as when they were due, when the proposals were due.
Okay, so otherwise it was a deadline thing. Nothing on the site plan, which is not included in our packet here. We've seen it before, but it's not in here. nothing else changed as far as the
No,
layout or so?
no, no, no,
Okay.
no, no. I should have included that.
Any other comments?
Yeah, if no one else has a comment, then I have some things to say here, but I wanted to, give anybody else a chance. So nobody? Okay, well, I am in favor of this, of the pickleball courts. I know that the proposal right here is 8 pickleball courts and room for about 4 more in some what'd you call it, undedicated or so, undesignated land at the end of it. I would be more in favor of this if at least a couple of these were some larger size that they could be a tennis court and striped for both tennis and pickleball. This is what we have in front of us. So like I say, I'm in favor of the pickleball courts. I'm not in favor of the parking lot. I will say up front that since this is, I'm glad to see it rightfully split into an alternative one for the rest of it, I'm willing to vote for this pickleball court part because the mayor wants it, there's community support. I would like to see how the pickleball court goes as far as the use and everything. And then there's some undedicated space there, maybe something, tennis court or a combination or something could be built there. But I will also say that if this includes the alternative one of the parking lot, I will vote against this. The parking lot part of this, I don't know, maybe R.A. Smith right there was given a directive of design 8 pickleball courts and a parking lot and put it in this square area right here and make it fit any way you can. Along the way, we've seen 3 different versions of the parking lot. I don't think the pickleball courts ever changed along the way, but the parking lot was getting changed frequently. I saw 3 versions. They were all congested, complex. They look like a traffic jam because there's a sort of an entrance road that goes into it, over a culvert, over a bridge across the moat to get into this. Once you turn into that driveway, you've got to go all the way into it and all the way around in order to get back out again. So I can see people coming in and hunting for, they think there's one open space way up in the front, the best space is waiting for them. And there'll be, a line of cars all trying to get in there to see if there's an available space. Just think of any other parking lot. But they have to go all the way around the loop in order to get back out again when they find out, no, it's already filled. Maybe the scope was too limited to R.A. Smith, and they did the best they could. So I will grant them that. I don't like the parking lot being out there. I would be in favor of just the pickleball court part of this and then see if people use that. And then the park commission could especially determine if it's even necessary to build a parking lot in there. Maybe we could use that space next to the pickleball courts for some other recreational activity over there. There are 2 large parking lots in Mckee, and this is an idea of we need more space. Well, there are times, yes, that I have seen where flag football and whatever it was, some other sport is going on at the same time, or a couple of parties going on, baseball game going on. I have seen that those 2 parking lots do get filled up. It's rare, it does happen. I would like to see how much demand there is for these pickleball courts and if we really need parking lots that are right next to them. I do kind of see a fault with, there's too many people who want to drive in and, they're, to put it lazy, where they want to drive all the way right up to their sport and park 10 feet away. I've seen them drive across the grass and go park right next to the baseball field, and that's when I call the police on them, and the police tell them they can't do that. The parking lot right here, well, I just don't like the way that it's squeezed into there. I did figure out on my own, for free, I will note, where I would put a parking lot if I was designing it, and which I did figure out a layout. It had about the same number of parking places. It did not have to go across the moat, the big ditch right there with culvert and driveway and everything like that. The layout that I mentioned at a previous meeting would have 2 ways in and out of it. So you drive in one end, you drive through it, you can drive out the other end. If it's filled, it works much better. It would have to be cheaper because it doesn't include a culvert and a driveway and all this stuff to get out to this square area out there. And also in the version that I would design, mine does not preclude that if the park commission decided in the future to go ahead and put this parking lot right next to these pickleball courts, that could still be done. But building this parking lot here does eliminate and preclude the one that I have in mind. Maybe you don't, maybe you remember, maybe not, about where I said I would put it. I would put it on the east side of the big ditch right there, contiguous but a separate lot right next to the main upper south parking lot. There's another problem that I see with this new parking lot here next to the pickleball courts. This is a list, yeah. I don't like this parking lot. This has already been described somewhere in here that the pickleball courts will not be lighted. That has to also include that the parking lot will not be lighted. Now, Scott, I would hope you remember in your first year here as Parks Director, representatives of the East Fitchburg Neighborhood Association met with you, myself and 3 others, to describe at that time, that's what, like 14 years ago, how the 2 and only 2 lights.
Seems like yesterday, Patrick.
Yes, yeah, it kind of does. There was only 2 lights in all the parking lots in Mckee Park, and we pointed out how too many times there would be 2 cars parked over in a dark corner for whatever's going on over there. Use your imagination. The police even have said, don't go near those cars. There could be drug sales, gun sales going on in there. That is literally what they told me. And there's other chronic problems. So due to us bringing this to your attention, and then eventually it went through the council and such, better lighting was installed into the main upper south parking lot. Some lights in the north lower parking lot were cut out, and half of the lights along the road were cut out because CETA didn't come up with the $20,000 they were supposed to contribute. This is going to create a dark parking lot in Mckee, and we're back to the same problem. When I walk through the park in the evening after dark, they still can find the dark corners to park out there. And this is going to create a great new place as an attractive nuisance for people to park in this parking lot. No lights around. The lights, by the way, are because of the subdivision over there. So, okay, I wouldn't say, light the whole thing, because then the residences over there in Fahey Fields are not going to like it. I'm saying don't put the parking lot there. And finally, I will agree that there are reasons of economies of scale to do this all at once, but there's also, on the counter side of that, the idea that we could decide to add a parking lot later in this place if we want to, or we could figure out if there is a need for a parking lot in this place, or if we want to put something else in this place. And voting for the pickleball without alternative 1 still has the whole pickleball court complex. It's accessible from those large parking lots that are there, and it gives us some option in the future. And that part I would vote for, but not if it includes alternative 1.
Okay, can I offer some thoughts?
Go ahead.
And actually, the parking lot is certainly one of the functions is to provide access to the pickleball, but it also provides, access to the northern, the upper, and the lower athletic fields. And alternate number 1 also includes, as you mentioned, the path that's going to access both the north and the south field. So, in theory, the alternate number 1 is really kind of a continuation of the development of the whole park. Certainly, it's going to provide access for the pickleball players, but it's also going to provide access to those upper and lower athletic fields. So that's kind of the continuation of the development of the entire park. And certainly that's as far as the lighting, the lighting of the pickleball courts, I think that we'll kind of see how that goes, but certainly your suggestion of lighting the parking lot along with the path, I think as we have lighting in the other parking lots and paths within Mckee, I think those would be, good additions to the park once if we get to begin or continue to develop it.
Well, all the other paths in Mckee are already lit. They have lights all along them. It's plenty bright along those paths, much more than Mckee.
And I guess that's what I'm saying is that to continue that theme of lighting the paths in the addition would seem to make sense along with lighting of the parking lot.
I kind of would not agree with that. It is written somewhere, don't have my finger on it, about that the pickleball courts would not be lit. So I think that the general idea here is this western edition of Mckee Park would not have lights in it.
No,
and by the way, it's not called.
I guess I'd
fields.
push back against that. I think certainly the pickleball courts, the lighting of the pickleball courts is an issue, but lighting for safety and those kinds of things, I think is a whole different issue.
There's nothing on this plan to build this with any lights. There's nothing on the plan at all for lights.
You're correct. That's correct.
So that's what we're voting on this. As far as connecting, a couple more little pedestrian bridges over to the north section and the south section, that seems pretty minor to, make a nice bridge or a culvert or a path or something. I'd kind of like to see a bridge. Would be nicer looking. But this is what we got in front of us. There's no lights. I don't like the layout of this parking lot. I designed a better one for free. And I would go with that, but not alternative one.
Other comments or questions? Yes, Dave.
I have a question. Patrick, what is the distance between the proposed pickleball courts and the parking lot that exists now?
I have measured it, don't have those tip of my tongue, but it's certainly walking distance. There's the east end of the court complex area is the part that is undesignated for future expansion for more pickleball courts, or I'd kind of like to see, a combination tennis, pickleball at that end. The pickleball courts are a little more farther to the west. So I hate to give you an actual number, but I could be out there tomorrow pacing it off and find out. I at an estimate, I would say within 200 feet of the existing parking lots. I think that's fair.
So maybe a 2-minute walk or something like that?
Less.
Minutes?
Yeah.
Minutes away?
Certainly. I mean, I can walk 1,000 feet across this park from my house out to the shelter in 3 minutes. I've timed that. So it could be a 1-minute walk easily. It's certainly accessible. And I don't see why people have to park their car 10 feet away from the court.
Yeah. Another question, Scott, maybe you could comment. Who came up with the idea that this was the right location for the pickleball courts and the right location for a parking lot and the need for the parking lot? It surprises me that if one had a master plan that we'd be, again, I cannot, let me be frank, I cannot figure out with the culverts and the drainage and everything, how this all works. And it seems to me that the initial master plan, did somebody try to save money in terms of not raising or adding more fill, or it just seems odd to me. Could you comment, Scott?
And maybe to the park planning process, when we did the Mckee Park master plan update, I believe it was in 2012, we did anticipate that Fahey Fields to the west would develop. So we did have a conceptual idea of, because of the topography, in order to make it usable, we needed to create a tier system, if you would. So What was created is to the north was a tier, and then in the middle was going to be the active areas, and to the south was going to be a play field similar to what it was on the north. So that,
It does recognize the activity of some sort.
well, in the middle with it, a shelter, bathroom, I think there was a tennis
Right.
court, there was different amenities that were gonna be, and the thought is that the amenities would be in the middle, and then we'd have the athletic fields on both the north and the south side. And then when the mayor, he wanted pickleball courts there, that kind of drove the design, if you would, of putting the 8 pickleball courts in there. And like I say, the parking lot and the path system are really, certainly it's conducive to the pickleball courts, but it is going to, provide access and services to the entire park, both the north side, the south side, and the central location. So it, and that was another good idea of separating, that it was a pickleball court, and then the balance is really development of the existing, or the balance of the park. We do have on the west end, there's going to be locations for playground structures on the west end, and then actually too with the water, the ability to potentially put a bathroom and that kind of facility on the west end is also included in that middle portion. And at the end of the day, the middle portion was really going to be the location for the specific park amenities, with the northern and the southern areas just being wide open play fields for games.
Just clarify, the master plan, was it done by outside consultants or was it done in-house?
No, I think that was a process that we did in-house.
I agree.
We didn't even have a subdivision identified at that point.
No, but we did plan for the
Right,
expansion
there was
of the park to the
Right.
east, and actually to the south, so.
Yeah. Go ahead.
If you're done, David?
Yes.
Okay. A little, as I remember on there was a series of meetings, and of course I attended every one of them, so this was designed for the master plan of the park, approved in 2012. But as I have also pointed out in a past meeting of ours here somewhat recently, last year when we were reviewing this, if anyone digs up that master plan, which is not in the packet right here, it actually shows a park shelter pretty much in the center where the pickleball courts are being drawn now. In 2012, no one talked about or knew of or thought of or planned for pickleball. So this is coming along after the master plan, and on that master plan, if you find it, there's a heavy black line that outlines the original part of Mckee Park at that time. Anywhere to the west of there was private property at the time, so it's not really practical to be designing a master park plan for an area that you don't even own, and you can't say for sure that you're going to get it. I mean, Dave Fahey may have not developed.
It was known it would be
kept going.
developed as housing.
Well, it was a kind of a future thing, but I mean, he could have kept, growing soybeans and corn there, and we would not have that for, another 20 years. So anyway, this western addition was not part of the master plan, because the master plan is everything inside of the heavy black line on there. This was speculation into the future, so not part of the master plan that was approved in 2012.
You're right. It was planning for the future, and we did take that into consideration, and it made sense. So it was.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's speculation.
Good planning exercise. We kept it contiguous, and when Dave and the development came in, we says, okay, this is the area that we want for the park, because we kind of planned for it, and so
Sure.
I think it worked out well.
It was earmarked as a future park if Dave Fahey develops over there. So yeah, I was looking into the future. He just didn't know what the timeline would be. But I would kind of say, as I remember from those meetings, I don't think there was much discussion in those meetings about what to put over in this western addition. This may have very well been just drawn in by you, Scott.
That was decided by the mayor what was going to be placed in there, so we did.
No, I mean, in the 2012 master plan when it was approved.
It was, the middle area was going to be the location for all the amenities. The northern and the southern area was going to be the athletic field, so.
The mayor at the time decided that?
The mayor.
In 2012?
The mayor decided when he put pickleball courts in.
No, that's current. I mean in 2012 for the master plan. The western addition was not in the master plan, just drawn onto the map over to the left on speculation of the future.
Well, the mayor was involved on that master plan.
I don't even know who was the
Effort
mayor
on
in
the park
2012.
commission. He was on the park commission at that time. So he was involved with that.
Who was the
we
mayor
call
at that time?
master plan.
Who was the mayor in 2012? I don't even know.
I'm not sure. Gonzalez maybe, or
Oh, no, before him.
I don't know.
It's quite a while ago. I mean, it's like almost 10 years ago.
But Aaron was involved with the planning process, so I'm pretty.
It's a matter of what was thought of at that time when it was approved in 2012 versus we get to, the last year, and then the current mayor, Aaron Richardson, yes, he's in favor of pickleball. I heard him speak at the council in favor of this. He believes it's popular and people will play, and he, put the money into his budget, although I see the money actually comes from park dedication fees. So the money was sitting there, but that, I guess, would be the approval step of putting it into the budget and allowing money to be taken from this fund and spent on this project. Otherwise, it would not go ahead if it was not approved or put into the budget and approved in the budget.
I have a feeling this is going to be approved by the city council. I just do. You folks can do what you want, but I think we should vote on it the way we would like to see it envisioned anyway, and go from there. Yeah, if there's no discussion, there should be a motion and a second.
I would make a motion to approve resolution R 5321, authorizing acceptance of the construction bid for pickleball courts at Fahey Fields.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second, okay.
I would make a motion to exclude alternative 1. That's an amendment to the motion.
And what would that be?
To exclude alternative 1.
To what, Don?
To exclude alternative 1. In other words, pickleball courts only, drop the parking lot for now.
Okay.
That's an amendment.
We have a second for that?
Is there a second? Yeah. Is there a second to the amendment?
I'll second the motion.
You'll second the amendment,
Yes.
correct? Okay, I just want to make sure. All right, any
I guess
discussion?
I have some discussion then on Patrick's amendment, because I would say that I don't think that not having a parking lot is safe. That as a Parks Commission, we are supposed to consider safety, and if that parking lot doesn't exist, anyone who comes to play pickleball with the 8 courts is going to have to walk through the main entrance road of Mckee Park, which, like is mentioned, is a busy park, which is lovely, and that it has baseball fields and volleyball courts, that the parking lot has been full, and that I think we would be introducing a safety concern if we don't include a parking lot with this project, expecting people to be walking through the main entrance of that park.
Yeah, I would agree.
I
would agree. But
I don't follow that because people have to come into the park anyway. Assuming they come in with a car for this parking lot, that's the purpose of a parking lot, they have to drive in the same entrance road. They have to drive past the first parking lot, the lower north one, and then they drive to the upper south parking lot, and then they take a turn into this driveway to go to this new annex parking lot off to the side to get to this one. Otherwise, they've driven past and through 2 large parking lots already.
What Sarah is saying is that if you don't have the parking lot, people that are going to be playing pickleball they're gonna park in the eastern lots, and then they're gonna have to walk against traffic.
Wait a minute. The eastern parking lot is off of Wild Heather,
Well, the parking lots that
not that one.
are there,
Yeah,
Sus-
existing two large main parking lots. They're right there right now.
Yep.
They're already built.
and as I understand, Sarah is saying that people will, in order to play pickleball, they're gonna have to park in those parking lots and
Exactly.
then walk across traffic.
Yes.
Okay.
That's how they would be
to-
walking, is they would be walking across that main entrance road.
Yeah.
And that, that immediately flags a safety concern to me, that I do not think that we would allow that, if we were looking at a park, that we wouldn't be expecting pedestrian traffic across the main entrance of a very busy park.
In comparison now, the people that use the eastern part of the park, they park east of the access road and just walk to their
Yeah,
event.
which actually works out well, because going to, let's say, the west ball field, you park over that way. If you're going to the north or the east or the south ball field or going to the shelter, you park over in that direction. This is essentially an unused western side of the two main parking lots, which it would usually be empty, and that's closest to the pickleball. And still, for the parking lot addition that I worked out a layout, is not in this center square section. It is where the little annex road goes through. So that would be closer. That kind of satisfies your concern, Sarah.
Right.
Is they would be on the west side of the road that goes into those two parking lots already if my parking lot gets built.
I think if you would examine Mckee Park, it's consistent with the planning that we have there with our tennis courts. There's parking, there's lighting. I think to do McGaw Park somehow differently, just, I don't know, it doesn't make any sense in my mind as being good planning. It's just same kind of park as Mckee Park, and it just allows for league play if there is league play. To me, it just makes sense. I don't see why this is even being debated, but, I understand what you're saying, Patrick, I do. So
Well,
is there any other comments on the amendment?
Again,
You made the amendment.
yeah, if the parking lot that I laid out is built, that is a substitute for this one here that's more expensive than the pickleball courts themselves. Look at the numbers. So mine would be simpler, and you'd have the same number of parking places approximately. It's just in their better location. Maybe R.A. Smith was told, put a parking lot over here, so they did. In the bigger picture, wider options, more flexibility of where to build all of this. I have a better parking lot. And
Well, just
there's
so-
two large ones.
I don't want to beat this thing to death. I think we know what's on our plate. If there's no further discussion, let's vote on the amendment and see where this thing goes.
Roll call.
Voting on the amendment, roll call.
And this is Patrick's amendment to the amendment,
Yes.
correct?
Right.
Just to clarify, okay.
Right. I mean,
Are you going to do it? All right, I don't know.
Not prepared for this, are you?
well, can you call it, Mark? I'll do, or Patrick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Patrick?
No.
So
Wait a
you're-
minute,
you're
wait a
not-
minute,
you're
wait a
not-
minute, wait a
you're not-
minute.
You're not in
I'm a
favor
little
of
mixed
your,
up there.
Yes
That would be a
means you
yes.
support the.
That would be a yes.
amendment.
okay, Katie?
A little ahead of myself.
No.
Sarah?
No,
I gotta write this down. Katie, Sarah. David?
Yes.
Susan?
No?
Chris?
No.
So the noes have it, so that amendment was defeated. So now we go back to the original amendment with Susan,
Yep.
Susan approving, or Sarah approving resolution R 5321 and Sue seconded. Do you want to roll with that one too, Patrick?
Yes.
Might as well.
Patrick?
Yes. This is the vote now?
This is a vote, yeah?
On the original motion.
Not used to being first. On the main motion, I vote no.
PC, no. Katie?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Susan?
Yes.
Okay, that passed. So resolution R 5321
Okay,
passed.
motion carries.
Thank you.
Let's, okay, we're done with that segment, so let's go to item 6, communications. That's yours.
Yep, and I've got several communication items for you. The first one is the annual median landscape maintenance contracts we have. Actually, there's two RFPs, one for the mowing and then one for the maintaining of the landscape. We did get some bids today, so that'll be running through the process. That'll be on the April Park Commission agenda.
Scott,
Yes?
do you mind if I just ask one question?
No, go ahead.
For the median mowing, I just within recent construction meetings, I have heard from residents talk about the long grasses and medians. Is that something that we can ask within the proposals as to whether we can try to avoid long grasses within medians just due to visibility concerns?
Well, I think that boat may have sailed, Sarah, in regards to the planting of the
Okay.
medians, but certainly, you know, with the contracts, they'll do a spring cleanup and a fall cleanup, so we can certainly, like we do with the other areas, identify those and make sure that we get them, cut down for visibility.
Thank you.
And I would note that it is 2021 to 2023, so this is a 3-year contract, just for.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
About Sarah's question. Sarah, were you talking about turf grass that's left to grow too long?
No.
Or decorative grasses that grow tall by nature?
The decorative grasses, which I do think are very pretty, but I have seen them in medians, and I do think that they are difficult to see if they're on the edges. And just within that Cyene Road construction meeting, there was a resident that mentioned that concern as well. So I just thought I'd bring it up here.
No, that's good information. Yep.
Yeah, Scott, at what point do we begin talking about doing this in-house?
Well, and that's a good point. We've got $70,000 that we allocate for this. So it may be getting to that point. Yeah, I guess that's all I
I
can.
mean, there's certainly justification for it.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah.
This used to be done in-house, and it was outsourced to the two contracts here for outside contractors to do this. It used to be done by the city staff.
It did.
Well, we used to do it in-house with our temps, but the temps didn't come on until like May. So that left usually April and May as being kind of a tough time because they didn't have the help. But now it's a little bit different, you know, if we end up hiring somebody, you know, if we have enough areas to justify doing this in-house.
Well,
Certainly,
and again, the contractual service is kind of a bridge between the full-time to another full-time person.
yeah.
So
Well, anyway, it's just something for the future.
that's a good point. Inclusive playground.
Oh, wait, no. Your comments, Scott, in the past were that it was cheaper and very efficient and economical to outsource it to these landscape companies that travel all around. So, I mean, you liked it, your staff liked it, to get rid of this work and give it out to the companies that are driving all over the city anyway, because it was efficient and very cost-effective.
Yeah, this was if we were going to bridge any work, it would be in the medians. I agree. That's a location that we would, it'd be best to find contractors to mow in comparison to the large open parks, which we have the equipment to do
Right.
and those kinds of things.
Yeah, 16-foot mowers don't fit well in a median.
No, they don't.
As far as these two right here, could you just clarify? One is called median landscape maintenance. It has the word landscape in it. The second one is turf maintenance of medians in various locations. So which is, one of these is mowing and the other is taking care of the chips and the trimming the trees and,
Well, there's plantings, there's a lot of
Plantings,
landscape
yes.
plantings in the
so
median.
which is which?
Well, the turf mowing is the grass, and the landscape maintenance is the landscape.
Okay.
It's kind of tricky, yep. And actually, I don't know if we've got separate, in the past, we've had separate contractors, one for the
Right.
mowing and one for the landscaping.
That's what this is now, right?
Well, I don't know, we got the bids today, so I
Oh,
don't want to.
well, I mean, I would think then that you would put out 2 RFPs.
Yep.
One for mowing and one for landscape.
But we may end up with the same
planting
contractor that
stuff.
gets both of them.
Okay, and then last year, at least at one point, there was no one who bid on the
Yeah,
trimming,
Yep.
chipping,
yeah.
landscape maintenance. That's not the mowing one. We had a mowing contract with somebody, but nobody bid on the landscaping maintenance.
And actually, we were lucky, we got 2 bids on the mowing and 1 bid on the landscaping.
Okay, so last year, was there anything done with the landscaping?
Yeah, Jordan was able to find someone to do it.
Okay.
And
And just, I mean, you say you put the bids out and it's coming in now or whatever. Again, I will just mention that I would like to see the mowing part expanded, especially to the very far parts like Briarwood, way down south, Perry J. Shappy, way over to the east. Any that are way far out from the maintenance building where they've got to drive the equipment, for miles down the road to get to them. These landscape companies are driving all over the place already. They could add, a park here into their route where they're going from one private property to another and then stop in at a park and mow it. So I would like to see the mowing part expanded.
And Patrick, we've discussed that question. and
Joran
and
gave us a report. I don't
Yeah,
think it was an
and-
equal to equal comparison, because when he figures out how many acres of grass in a park can be mowed like in an hour or something, that's a whole lot different than mowing a median that has plants and trees and signposts and light posts and everything around. It's got to be a lot more difficult. So it's not really equal to equal. And if you put out a bid, you'd find out how much someone would charge for mowing any given area that you throw out there. And you could always make it, we'll pick this one and this one and this one, and we'll go back to in-house for these others. It'll give you the information to compare.
Okay,
Okay?
okay?
Yeah.
The next one is the inclusive playground at Mckee. We did actually have our initial meeting with R.A. Smith with the design, so that's moving forward. Just wanted to give you an update on that. The item C is the Town of Madison report. The city will be taking on portions of the Town of Madison in October of 2022. And actually what that would mean to the Parks Department is we actually have it's Southdale Park, which is a 5.8 acre park, which will be added to our areas that need to be maintained. And then the Stoner Prairie Park planning update. We did reach out, and a couple notes on that. We've got 15 members actually on the ad hoc committee, so that's a good number, and the mayor will hopefully appoint and approve those at the March 9th council meeting. And then I would report too that Chad Siegel is going to be, he's assigned as a staff liaison for this project. So you'll be seeing more about that in the near future.
A lot of interest in that park.
Yes, which is and actually there's four park commission members that are on that ad hoc committee. So that's
Good.
a lot of interest. I did include The spring planting, tree spring planting, that's out to bid currently, so that'll come to the April Park Commission meeting. What is it, I think we've got a total of 125 trees that'll be going in this spring, a combination of developments and parks. And then I did include the annual report for
Okay,
20.
before you go on to the next one,
Yep.
as far as the tree planting right there, yeah, I know those are, quality trees from nurseries and everything specific. There's a list of all the names in there. In some parks like Mckee, where a lot of trees in the woods have been, I would call it decimated, taken out. And then that western edition of Mckee Park is a very, very open area. I know there are little new trees planted in there last year, 105 on that past contract last year. I would actually like to suggest that we look into getting some nice white pine seedlings, and you know, if you can get them for free or $1 a piece or something or other like that, and get a couple hundred of them and plant them in rows and windbreaks and visual screening. I have obtained some, I think it cost me $10 to get 10 of them from the Arbor Society like 30 years ago, and I planted them, and those things are huge now. So 10 years, we'd have, a good thick white pine screening and windbreak for these very open areas of Mckee Park and anywhere else you'd like to see them. But I would like to suggest that somebody look into getting a whole bunch of white pine seedlings and plant them in rows.
Very good. Noted. And like I say, then I did include the annual report for our 2020, and you could see that, it was a pretty busy season in the parks. And actually, with the recreational programs, we did have some programs in the spring, which are included in that report. So that's all I have for that.
Okay.
Certainly any questions if people have.
Any questions for Scott? Okay, thanks, Scott.
You're welcome.
I have a question, okay, or a comment about seeing a long thread of discussion on Nextdoor Fitchburg about Sunnyside Dog Park. Somebody posted, and sorry about the visual on this, but they went in there and collected 30 bags. I don't know what the size of the bag was of dog doo. And of course, that led to an explosion of discussion for users of the park. And one of the comments I think that was very valid is that several people noticed that people who, for a business, do dog walking, stop in with 6 dogs and 1 person. And there's no way one person can watch where 6 dogs are roaming and pick up after all 6 of them. That's probably not the only problem, but then another person commented that the Madison Dog Parks, that there's actually a posted limit of 1 person can bring in no more than 3 dogs. So just something to think about for future operations of the dog park. I'm not suggesting we're going to answer it here, just wanted to mention it.
Well, in to the dog poop, I know the Fitchburg Dog Park advocates, they're willing to provide for a service to come in and pick up in the spring, so maybe that's something I'll reach out to the dog park advocates to see if they can't hire someone to come in and pick up the pickup.
Yeah, and that, some of the other comments, which are probably true, is people bring in dogs and then they spend time chatting with each other or looking at their phones, and they're also not paying attention. And you'll always have a percentage of people who are like that. So I don't know what percent is one or the other.
Very, very good.
Okay. You don't have anything to add under item 7, do you?
Staff
Covered
reports.
most of that? Okay.
Yep.
Future agenda items, any future agenda?
Well, in actually one item is the CIP. Typically, what I usually did is had the draft CIP to the Park Commission in March because it needs to be approved in April. But I wasn't able to do that, so what I will do before the April meeting is I'll get that to you as soon as I can. So at least you'll have a chance to take a look at it. And I'm not anticipating that we're going to have any big CIP projects, but I just wanted to get it. Typically, I would get it to you now so that you had a month to take a look at it, but I'll get it to you as soon as I can so that you're prepared for the vote in April.
Okay, real good.
I will tell you, too, that I might be on vacation on that meeting in April, so if anyone's interested in, no, I'll take my computer with me, but I might be via Zoom from my,
You can zoom in from anywhere
yeah,
nowadays.
my, well, and what's nice is I've got a PC, so I can work and all that good stuff, so.
For when you,
Other options, we could just reschedule.
No, we'll have business, so we gotta keep trucking along.
Yeah.
No canceling Park Commission.
I wouldn't take my work on my vacation.
No.
But okay.
Just a informational note for you.
couple hours on the beach from Hawaii, you can join in us.
Undesignated donation, or,
You're not gonna tell, huh?
no.
All
And
right.
it'll be, you won't see my face.
Yeah, we wanna see the
It'll just
background of where
Just
you're
be my
sitting.
name.
We'll figure it out.
Okay, item 9, I want to just remind people that the next two Park Commission meetings are April 1st and May 6th. We need a motion to adjourn after this, and a second.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
I will second.
Okay, all those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, it's 9:12.
Opposed? Motion carried. We are adjourned.
Thanks, everyone.